Laylee here, back with another video, and today's video, finally, I've been meaning to put it out, but I had end up being busy and going out of town. So I said, as soon as I get back and have some time, I want to do a review on the New Edition movie. I thought it was an excellent picture. I thought BET did a fabulous job. So for those who are watching that have nowhere of who New Edition I'm talking about, New Edition, I'm just going to give you an overview of who they are. And this is for people who don't know. For everybody who do know, you know the story. So I pull up some information here. Give me 1 second. I got some notes. So New Edition, let me go back, sorry. New Edition is a boy band from Roxbury, Massachusetts, Roxbury, a neighborhood in Boston, Massachusetts that was formed in 1978. The group reached its height of popularity through the 1980s. They were the makers of what we all call today the boy band movement of the 80s and the 90s. They paved the way for groups such as New Kids on the Block, Boys to Men, Hi-Fi, Blackstreet Boys, and NSYNC, and even another bad creation, which is known as BBD. The group members consist of the following: Ricky Bell, Michael Vivens, Bobby Brown, Ronnie DeVoe, Johnny Gill, and Ralph Tresvant. The group has off and on has shift from 5 members to 6 members. So I just want to give you an overview of what the group was. It's an African American group, by the way. So I just want to give you an overview of who the group was. So they've been in the music game for many years, from the late 70s, and here we are in 2017, and they are still in the game. And I thought it was only fitting for them to do a movie about their life's journey. They said this has been in the making. They had originally signed a contract 10 years ago. I want to say it was Paramount Fox Studios, but since Bobby Brown did not sign on, that deal did not go through. And plus, they said that deal only included them for doing a one night, 2-hour movie. This deal they signed with BET allowed them to have 6 hours, 3 nights of footage, which I thought was so fitting. So let's go ahead and go into the movie. BET took the production deal, made the contract, took the production, and everybody signed on to get this movie accomplished. It was broken down into 3 nights, so it ran from Tuesday, January 25th through Thursday, January 27th. I want to say those are the days. If I got it wrong, charge it to my head and not my heart. But it ran through Tuesday and to Thursday of last week. And they broke it up into 3 parts. So I'm just going to review on the parts and hit on some tidbits. So Part 1 was really the focus of them getting established. They was a group of kids growing up in the projects, looking for a big break. They had discovered, they had talents. They all could sing and they all had talents, but they really wanted to form a group and make use of their talents. Bobby Brown was in a talent show by himself and he got booed off, and the guys had encouraged him to try again, but he said, I will go back, but this time going back with you guys, we're going to form a group. So they were encouraged to get a manager. That's where Brooke Payne comes into play. I think he's played by Wood Harris. So he was the one that got them started in terms of making them performers, building up their stamina, making them stage performers. Because sometimes it's not all about just can you sing, can you do you actually have stage presence? And that's what Brooke Payne did, is give them stage presence. They end up going to a talent show, which was going to help them to earn a recording contract, along with winning a prize of $500. Now, they say in the movie that it was no money attached to it. It was actually just an opportunity to get a recording track. But when I went against the notes of their biography that's online, it says that they would have won $500 and recording contract. So in the midst of the talent show, they did not win. They actually got second place, but the crowd was so hyped and people were so moved by their performance. Maurice Starr, who was played by Faison Love from I want to say the TV show Parenthood. He was Wendell. He actually went ahead and gave them a contract and signed them. Some other things that happened once they got into the studio. Faison Love, which is Maurice Starr, he realized that Ralph Tresvant was the one that really had the voice, and he wanted him to sign a solo deal. And at the time, he said, to give him a call and think about it. Well, it was, it just showed that they was really going through hardship. Ralph them did not have a telephone. They couldn't even afford a Christmas tree. He took his money and his money that he got from talent shows, and him and his sister scuffle up to have a Christmas tree because they, knew that their mom couldn't afford Christmas, and that really just, touched my heart. So, wow, these kids were like, had spirits of adults, realizing where they were at in life. So that was another thing that started off with me. So Ralph eventually decides, hey, you know what, we are a group, take us or leave us. So he said he'll take them. Here's something that tells that message I need to get across, people. Reading is fundamental. It don't take you to have a PhD. You don't have to have a master's. You just need to have the common sense to just read between the lines. These were kids, so of course they couldn't sign a contract without their parents' consult. And one scene in the movie where the Faison Love Maurice Starr came to sign the contracts, nobody read the freaking contract. Nobody. They all was just signing about getting this money and we coming out the projects. They did not read behind the fine line. And all Faison Love promised them, they said, your signing bonus would be $500 and you get a Betamax. They didn't look and see how this worked. And that's how so much black artists got played, because they did not read the fine print. They was just so focused on getting the money, getting the stardom. They didn't go look between the fine lines, because that's not only happened to New Edition, that happened to TLC, that happened to Toni Braxton, and it happened to many other artists who just simply did not read their contract and got played when it came to a lot of monies. One thing that was mentioned, I'm going to go back. I'm not going to bring that coming up because it's going to focus on later. But yeah, so they just went off. They got a tour bus. They doing Candy Girl. They singing Jealous Girl, Popcorn Love. That was some of the songs that came off their first album. So they're traveling across the country. Traveling across the country. They're traveling across the world. They're gaining fans. They're gaining popularity. All to come back. Well, let me tell you this. While they was on tour, they did a segment of the show where they had morphed them from the kids to the teenager versions of New Edition. So I thought that was kind of cool because they showed them grow up and progress and all that stuff. So it was nice how they smoothed the kids' characters out and smoothed the up-to-date the adult characters in. So they still did wrapping up their tour, all of a sudden to get dropped back into the projects. And they get dropped back into the projects and they received a check for $1.87. So just imagine, you done went all across the world. You done bust your butt night in, night out. And traveling on the road is not easy, ladies and gentlemen. Traveling on the road is not easy. They bust their butt night in, night out. They was away from their families. They probably, couldn't play and do stuff because they was traveling. So do all that work and you come home to a check for $1.87. So I did go against what the biography online says with the movie. So they showed them getting a check for $1.87, which supposed to have been the group check as a whole, but in the actually online the biography says that they each got an individual check for $1.87. What a slap in the face. They didn't even have the, they didn't, not even $500, not even $300, not even $100, $1.87. And of course they said we're gonna blame it on we had expenses, which is true. You had to pay for the hotels, you had to pay for the travel, the airplane tickets, whatever. That is true. But normally artists usually get an advance. If you pay attention, artists normally supposed to get an advance check. And then what the goal is to make the money back. And once they get to the point where they broke even off of what their advance was, the money that comes after the advance is whatever they will earn. So usually an artist would get a check up front, and that's that's just saying you got to do all these promotions, you got to do all these tours, and it's supposed to be once you hit that amount that they paid out, anything else is coming back to you. That's how the normal contract status work. But yeah, so they decided to get rid of their manager, who was Brooke Payne, played by Wood Harris. The mamas was upset, but I blame the mamas. I mean, you can't blame the kids. You got to blame the mamas. They did not read. I mean, I understand it might have been a lack of education, but they did not read their contract. So, I mean, like Brooke said, I'm sure he went to bat for them to say, hey, I'm sure he went to say, this is it. And I'm sure it was a tough pill for him to swallow, to take a check for $1.87 to them. And Brooke was also, people fail to realize, Brooke was also still living in the projects. He wasn't living in a lap of luxury. I'm sure he got some money, but it probably wasn't enough to sustain him enough to move out within that first album. So from there, it leads to it went off. Next day was part 2. Part 2, now they left Maurice, and they left Maurice Starr and the Streetwise record company, and now they supposed to be part of the MCA family, and they have a new manager, Gary, and Gary's telling the family, we're gonna do this, you're gonna get paid, we're gonna live like this, blah 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 blah. So they take off, they work on this second album, we on the MCA, we good now, and you got the hits like Telephone Man and Cool It Now. Those were the songs. Now I would say this is the point in New Edition Dear career that I come into play. I was still relatively young for the first Candy Girl album, so I really don't have, I have heard the songs before, but I really don't have a recollection to it. But I do remember being a little girl hearing Telephone Man and Cool It Now. Mr. Telephone Man, Cool It Now. I remember those, it's good as day, growing up listening to those. So I feel like I came into the picture with New Edition as a fan during their second album. So they're teenager boys now. They working on this, they're doing this second album. They try and do the choreographed steps, but, it's not happening. In comes Brooke Payne back to help them with choreography, create, a performance, and they got suits on, and they got castles and DJs, and then the manager, he called back Brooke Payne because he felt like he couldn't do anything with them. MCA, the leadership, who was the main guy who was played by singer Tank. And then I want to say Dwayne Martin played the sidekick. So, Tank felt that, it was little, ghetto kids rough around the edges, but he still want to make some money off of them. So, this is the point where Bobby Brown really starting to act up. He's, wanting more showtime. He's the lead singer, but, to be honest, I'm going to be real. Ralph Tresvant actually had the better voice. I'm going to be real with you. Bobby Brown could sing, but it was really Ralph that had the voice that carried the group. So during this time, Bobby Brown, was, wanting the starlight and making the show go longer than it have to. And then, and it was just other antics. He had ended up getting a girl pregnant. He got caught doing drugs. He was known for doing drugs and being around raunchy girls. And it was really, the management really felt that Bobby Brown was affecting their image as a group, because they supposed to have the clean cut kid, popcorn, bubblegum type image. This we're catering to little girls, as the manager has said. We little girls are thinking about you guys, and here's Bobby Brown here making babies, and he was only 15. So due to all that stuff Bobby Brown was going into, they decided to depart with Bobby and continue on. In the meantime, Bobby Brown went back home thinking his career was over, thinking his life was over, still doing the drugs in his mama house. But then MCA approaches him about a solo contract. Meanwhile, New Edition is going with the group of 5. And then Bobby Brown is being catapulted into solo artist. So out comes Bobby. Ralph is contemplating a solo deal. They looking at him like, what the hell, dude? But they just never realized that Ralph, if you paid attention in part 1, he always had an opportunity to go solo. He just took the guys in consideration, and he went with being a group instead of artists. So they entered Johnny Gill. So they brought Michael Bivins encouraged Johnny Gill, who was a solo artist. He did some things with Stacey Lattisaw. I remember that growing up as well. He did some things with them, and he was working on a solo project, but got convinced to go into New Edition as not only the thought of maybe had to replace Bobby Brown, but they was looking at it as had to replace Ralph. So Ralph Transvet really wasn't feeling that. He despised Johnny Gill at first, but somehow they made a connection when they was in the studio laying down vocals, and there you had Can You Stand the Rain. So they end that part 2 with them getting ready to go on the NE Heartbreak Tour. Now, I remember that. I didn't go to the concert, but I remember that album. That third album was hot and popping. But guess what? You're going to go on this tour. We got $30 million set up, and it's 5 of them. And guess what? 30 million, 5